The hum of my tattoo machine, a custom-built coil liner with a heavy brass frame, was the only sound in the shop. It was a specific frequency, a low, aggressive vibration that started in the coils, traveled through the armature bar, down the tube, and settled deep into the bones of my wrist. To most people, it sounded like an angry hornet trapped in a glass jar. To me, it sounded like focus. It was the white noise that drowned out the relentless Seattle rain hammering against the plate glass of the storefront, the distant, mournful wail of sirens on 4th Avenue, and the static-filled thoughts in my own head. I wiped the fresh ink from the client's forearm with a paper towel soaked in green soap. The smell clean, antiseptic, medicinal with a sharp, synthetic hint of lavender filled the small, sterile booth. It was the smell of closure. "We're done, Mike," I said, my voice low. I didn't yell over the music because there was no music. Sanctum Inc. was a silent shop. No heavy metal, no hip-hop, no podcast about true crime. Just the rain, the buzz, and the breathing of the person in the chair. Mike looked down at his arm. The wolf was gray wash, realistic enough to step off the skin, the fur detailed down to individual hairs, the eyes holding a glint of white ink that caught the studio light. The skin around it was angry and red, weeping plasma, but the art was pristine. "Damn, Silas, you're a magician. I didn't think you could cover that old script." "I'm a craftsman," I corrected gently, snapping off my black nitrile gloves with a sharp snap that echoed in the quiet room. Magic implies a trick. This is physics and pigment. Keep it wrapped for 3 hours. Wash it with unscented soap. No sun, no swimming. Respect the healing process, or the ink will fall out and you'll be left with a gray smudge. Mike paid in cash, a thick roll of bills that he placed on the counter. He tipped too much, as they usually did when the adrenaline wore off and the endorphins kicked in. I watched him go, locking the door behind him, then flipped the sign to closed. It was 8 p.m. on a Tuesday in Seattle. The sky was leaking gray misery, and the streetlights were blurring on the wet asphalt like watercolor paints running off a canvas. I began my breakdown ritual. Everything in my life was a ritual. Strip the barrier film from the armrest. Bag the clip cord cover. Disassemble the grip to be autoclaved. Wipe the station with Cavicide. The chemical scent burned my nose slightly, a harsh reminder of sterility. Reset. The bell above the door chimed. I didn't look up immediately. My hand froze on the spray bottle. I knew I had locked the door, but the latch on the old frame was temperamental. Sometimes the humidity made the wood swell, preventing the bolt from seating fully. I continued scrubbing the stainless steel tray, ignoring the intrusion. "We're closed," I said, my voice flat, not turning around. "Appointments only. Schedule is online. The waitlist is 6 months." "I don't have an appointment." The voice was tight, cultured, and trembling, just slightly. It wasn't the voice of someone looking for a drunk impulse tattoo. It wasn't the voice of a tourist wandering in from Pike Place Market. It was the voice of someone standing on a ledge, looking down at the concrete. I turned around slowly, towel in hand. Standing in my entryway, dripping rainwater onto my polished concrete floor, was a woman who looked like she had taken a wrong turn from a high-end fashion shoot and ended up in a back alley. She wore a trench coat that probably cost more than my motorcycle charcoal wool, tailored to within an inch of its life. Her heels were sharp enough to puncture a tire. Her dark hair was plastered to her cheeks, heavy with rain, but her eyes, dark, fierce, and terrified, were locked on mine. I knew who she was. You couldn't live in Seattle, a city built on tech money and caffeine, and not know Adelina Sanchez. She was the CEO of Sanchez Dynamics. She was on the cover of Forbes last month under the headline, "The Iron Queen of Tech." They said she ate competitors for lunch and fired people for blinking too slowly. Right now, the Iron Queen looked like she was about to shatter into 1,000 jagged pieces. "Miss Sanchez," I said, keeping my hands on the spray bottle. I didn't fanboy. I didn't react. In my shop, you were just skin and stories. Status didn't stick to the vinyl chair. Like I said, "We're closed." "I need you to fix me," she said. She didn't move. She stood in the puddle she was creating, holding her ground with a desperate kind of rigidity. I was told, "You are the ghost. The one who doesn't talk, the one who doesn't post photos on Instagram if the client asks, the one who charges a fortune and never asks why." "I value privacy," I said, setting the bottle down on the counter. "Is that what you're buying?" I'm buying your silence, she said, stepping further in, her heels clicking rhythmically on the concrete. She reached for the belt of her trench coat. Her hands were shaking a fine, high-frequency tremor that a CEO would kill to hide. And your speed? I don't do speed, I said calmly, leaning back against the workstation. Fast tattoos are bad tattoos. Good tattoos are slow. Pain takes time. Healing takes time. I don't have time for slow, she snapped, the mask slipping back into place, brittle and hard. I have the shareholders' gala in 3 weeks. I have to wear a specific dress, backless, side cut. And I can't wear it with this. She dropped the coat. It fell to the floor with a heavy, wet thud. Underneath, she was wearing a silk blouse that shimmered under the bright studio lights. She unbuttoned the bottom 3 buttons and pulled the fabric aside, exposing her left ribcage. I stopped breathing for a second. The scar was angry, a jagged, keloid map of violence that ran from her hip bone up to her lower ribs. It looked like a surgical intervention that had saved a life, but ruined a torso. It was pink, raised, and twisted, pulling the skin tight around it. It was a roadmap of trauma. The tissue was shiny, lacking the pores and texture of the surrounding skin. Car accident, she said, seeing my eyes on it. 11 months ago. The airbag didn't deploy. The doorframe did the rest. They had to rebuild my side with titanium and prayer. It's healed, I noted. My professional brain taking over, analyzing the texture, the depth, the collagen density. But the tissue is dense, hypertrophic. It's not going to take ink like normal skin. It's ugly, she hissed. And the board. Sterling and his vultures. They're looking for blood. If I show up in a high-neck gown, they'll say I'm hiding injuries. They'll say I'm not physically fit to lead. Rumors are already circulating on the Bloomberg terminals that I'm crippled or addicted to painkillers. I need to wear the dress. I need to show skin. But I can't show this. She looked at me, her chin high, defying me to pity her. I don't want a logo. I don't want art for the public, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. I want something intimate. Something only you'll see. Just armor. I looked at the scar. Then I looked at her face. She was exhausted. She was cornered. And she was asking me to paint over a trauma so she could go into a room full of sharks and pretend she didn't bleed. Put your coat on, I said quietly. She flinched, as if I'd slapped her. You won't do it? I didn't say that. I walked around the counter. I said, put your coat on. You're shivering. Hypothermia is bad for the ink absorption. It constricts the capillaries. The skin gets tight and rejects the pigment. I walked to the door and locked it, turning the deadbolt with a heavy clunk. I turned off the neon open sign, plunging the front of the shop into shadow. 3 weeks is tight, I said, turning back to her. Scar tissue is difficult. It hurts more than normal skin. It swells. It bleeds. We also need to be realistic about the canvas. I'll need to do a test patch, a small area first to see how the keloid holds the pigment. If it blows out, we stop. If it holds, we proceed. No rushing. No CEO demands. In this chair, you aren't the boss. You're the canvas. Can you handle that? Adelina Sanchez took a deep breath, clutching her coat tight around her silk blouse. I handle everything, Mr. Reyes. Silas, I said. And we'll see. I brought her to the consultation station, a high-backed leather chair near the drafting table. I poured her a glass of water from the cooler. No ice. Room temperature. Cold water shocks the system when you're already panicked. Sit, I said. She sat, crossing her legs. She looked out of place against the flash art on the walls, traditional skulls, roses, daggers, Japanese dragons. But she also fit. She had the hardness of a dagger. Tell me about the design, I said, grabbing my sketchbook and a charcoal pencil. You said armor. I don't want a literal suit of armor, she said, taking a sip of water. Her hands were still shaking. I want nature, but dangerous nature. Not a flower shop, not a garden. Botanical, I noted, sketching a curve. Thorns? Vines? Resilience, she said. Something that grows over ruins, something that survives a fire. I sketched a rough shape on the paper. Flowing with the anatomy. We can't fight the scar. If we try to hide it with a solid block of black, it will just look like a cover-up. It draws the eye to the weight of the ink. We have to incorporate it. Make the scar the stem or the vein of a leaf. You want to highlight it? She asked, horrified. I want to translate it, I said. I want to change the narrative. Right now, it says injury. I want it to say survival. She stared at me. Her eyes softened, just a fraction, the panic receding to reveal a deep, exhausting sadness. I'm a pragmatist, I said. My neck tattoo covers a burn from a motorcycle exhaust. I know how this works. I stood up and grabbed a pair of fresh nitrile gloves. I need to map the area. May I touch you? She stiffened. Is it necessary? I need to feel the density of the collagen. If the scar is too hard, the needle will bounce. If it's too soft, it will blow out and look like a bruise. I need to know the terrain before I build on it. She nodded, looking away toward the rain-streaked window. She pulled the blouse up again. I put the gloves on. I approached her slowly, no sudden movements. I placed my fingertips on the pink ridge of skin on her side. She flinched. A sharp intake of breath through her nose. Pain? I asked, freezing. No, she whispered. Just, I haven't let anyone touch it. Since the surgery, not even my doctor. I handle the checkups myself. It's just skin, Adelina, I said, using her name for the first time. It's just skin that fought hard to stay together. I traced the line of the scar. It was raised, jagged, but settled. I can work with this, I said, stepping back and peeling the gloves off. But we need 3 sessions. 4 hours each. 1 a week. That leaves us 0 margin for error before your gala. I can pay double, she said immediately. Triple. Whatever your rate is, add a 0. I don't care about the money, I said, sitting back down. I care about the healing. If you stress your body, the tattoo will heal poorly. You need to sleep. You need to eat. You need to hydrate. Can the CEO of Sanchez Dynamics do that? She laughed, a bitter, short sound. The board is trying to trigger a vote of no confidence. My stock price dips every time I frown in public. Vance Sterling is counting the days until he can sell the company to a conglomerate for parts. Sleep is a luxury I can't afford. Then buy it, I said. Consider it an investment in the asset being your skin. She looked at me, really looked at me, assessing me like I was a line of code she couldn't quite parse. Why do you care? Because my name goes on your ribs, I said. And I don't sign bad work. It was a lie. Or half a truth. I cared because I saw the way her hand trembled when she touched the scar. I knew that tremble. It was the shame of being broken in a world that demanded perfection. It was the same tremble I had felt years ago, staring at my own burns in a hospital mirror. Tuesday nights, she said. 8 p.m. After hours. I can't be seen coming here during the day. The optics. A tech CEO at a tattoo parlor. Optics, I repeated. Fine. Tuesdays at 8. I'll lock the door. But you sign an NDA too. Excuse me? I don't want the paparazzi outside my shop any more than you want them. She smiled. It was tight, sharp, and impressive. Deal. Tuesday. Silas. The following Tuesday, the rain had stopped, but the fog was heavy, wrapping the city in white wool. Adelina arrived at 7:55 p.m. Precise. She looked worse than the week before. Dark circles under her eyes that expensive concealer couldn't hide. She was holding a tablet, scrolling through emails as she walked in. Coffee, she said, holding out a paper cup. I brought you one. Black. That seems like your type. Accurate, I said, taking the cup. Phone and tablet off. Adelina. I can't, she said, sitting in the chair. The Asian markets are opening. I have a supply chain crisis in Shenzhen. If I don't authorize the container shift in 10 minutes, we miss Q3 targets and Sterling gets another bullet for his gun. Not in my chair, I said. You can't sit still if you're typing. And the stress raises your blood pressure. More bleeding. Dilutes the ink. The design suffers. She glared at me. I run a billion-dollar company, Silas. I don't punch a clock. In here, I'm the CEO, I said quietly. I set up the station. I snapped the barrier film over the armrest, smoothing out the air bubbles with my thumb. I set out the ink caps, small, medium, large, and shook the bottle of dynamic black until the mixing ball rattled like a bullet in a tin can. The sound of plastic wrappers opening was the only noise. Phone off, or we don't start. She held my gaze for a long 5 seconds. A battle of wills. She was used to winning, but she needed me. She turned the phone off. She slid it onto the counter with a loud clack. Fine, she said, but if the stock tanks, I'm billing you. Take your shirt off, I said. I have pasties for coverage. She went behind the privacy screen. When she came out, she was wearing the nipple covers and holding a towel against her chest. She looked vulnerable. Small in the sterile light of the shop, stripped of her armor, she lay down on the table, exposing her side. I placed the stencil. It was a design of dark, flowing peonies and jagged, abstract, geometric lines, the organic meeting the structural. The leaves curled around the scar, hugging it, not hiding it. Ready? I asked, dipping the needle into the black ink. I'm going to start with the test patch near the hip bone. Small line. If it spreads, we stop. Just do it. I stepped on the pedal. The machine buzzed. I touched the needle to her skin, right at the base of the hip where the scar tissue was thickest. She gasped. Her entire body went rigid. Her hand gripped the edge of the table so hard her knuckles turned white. Her back arched. Breathe, I ordered. Don't hold it. Exhale. It burns, she hissed through gritted teeth. It's a needle dragging through skin at 100 times a second, I said calmly. It's supposed to burn. Ride the wave. Don't fight it. I ran a short line. I wiped it. The ink held crisp. No blowout. The scar was accepting the pigment. Good news, I said. The canvas is cooperating. We proceed. I worked in silence for 10 minutes. Her breathing was ragged. She was fighting it, fighting the loss of control. Every muscle in her torso was tight, which made the skin harder to work. Adelina, I said, stopping the machine. Why did you stop? She demanded, opening her eyes. They were wet. You're too tight. You're fighting the pain. You have to accept it. I don't accept pain, she snapped. I conquer it. That works in a boardroom, I said. Here, it just exhausts you. Look at me. She looked up. Give me your hand, I said. I peeled off my glove, a violation of protocol, but necessary. I took her hand. My hand was warm, ink-stained. Hers was ice-cold. Squeeze my hand, I said. Transfer the tension. Let the ribcage go soft. Let me carry the weight. She squeezed. Her grip was surprisingly strong. I can't fail, she whispered. This gala. If they see weakness, they won't, I promised. They'll see art. Now breathe. I put a fresh glove on. I started again. This time, she didn't fight. She breathed. The line work began to take shape, dark, crisp lines turning the scar into the stem of a flower that refused to die. The second session was harder. We were moving into the shading. Shading on the ribs is brutal. It feels like a vibration rattling your skeleton. Adelina was late. 8:20 p.m. She stormed in, throwing her bag on the couch. They leaked the quarterly earnings, she said, pacing the small shop. Someone on the inside. My stock is down 4% in after-hours trading. Sterling is calling an emergency meeting for Monday. Sit, I said. You're late. I can't sit. I need to fix this. I need to be on calls. I need to spin the narrative. You can't fix it tonight, I said. You're spiraling. I am not spiraling, she shouted. I am managing a crisis, and I don't have time to lie on a table and get pricked with needles. She turned to leave. I moved fast. I didn't grab her. I never grabbed a client, but I stepped in front of the door. I blocked her path. You have a gala in 12 days, I said. If we don't shade tonight, it won't heal in time. You'll be wearing a bandage to the ball. Is that the look you want? Get out of my way, Silas. She looked shocked. No one said no to her. You're tired, I said, observing the tremor in her hands. When did you eat last? Yesterday? Lunch? I walked over to the phone and dialed the Thai place next door. Yeah? Dave? It's Silas. I need a pad Thai. Chicken. Extra lime. 5 minutes. I hung up. Eat, I said. Then we tattoo. You're running on cortisol and caffeine? You're shaking? I can't tattoo a moving target? She stared at me, her mouth slightly open. Then, the fight drained out of her. She slumped onto the waiting bench. I hate you, she said. But there was no heat in it. I know. I said. I'm the guy causing you pain. It's a natural reaction. We ate the Thai food on the counter. She ate like she was starving, which she was. Why do you live like this? I asked, watching her pick at a peanut. Like what? Like you're at war. Because I am, she said. My father built the company. He died 2 years ago. Everyone thinks I'm just the daughter, the diversity hire. I have to be twice as good to get half the respect. Sterling calls me the princess when the minutes aren't being recorded. You're killing yourself to prove you're alive, I said. And what do? She countered. You sit in a dark room and inflict pain for a living. I transform pain, I said. People come to me to mark a death, a birth, a breakup. They want to change their outside to match their inside. It's honest work. Do you have anyone? She asked suddenly. A partner? Or just the needles? Just the needles, I said. Relationships are messy. Ink is permanent. You're lonely, she observed. I'm solitary, I corrected. There's a difference. I don't think there is, she said softly. It's just something we tell ourselves to feel noble. We finished eating. We went to the chair. The session lasted 3 hours. It was grueling. The shading needle's magnums dragged across her ribs like sandpaper. But she didn't complain once. She stared at the ceiling, tears leaking silently from the corners of her eyes. But she held still. At one point, she fell asleep, a pain reaction, the body shutting down to cope. I kept working, holding her side gently, feeling the rise and fall of her breath against my hand. It was the most intimate I had ever been with a woman. I knew the map of her ribs better than I knew my own palm. I knew where she flinched, where she held tension, but I kept my gloves on. By the third session, the routine was established. She arrived at 8. She brought coffee. I ordered food. She complained about Sterling. I complained about the humidity affecting the ink flow. The tattoo was nearly done. It was magnificent. The peonies bloomed in dark gray and black, their petals soft and velvety, covering the jagged line of the scar. The scar tissue itself gave the flowers texture, making them look three-dimensional. It's beautiful, she whispered, looking in the mirror. She ran her fingers over the fresh work. It hides it. It doesn't hide it, I said, standing behind her, watching her reflection. It integrates it. You're not covering the history, Adelina. You're illuminating it. She turned to look at me. We were close. Too close. The smell of the green soap mixed with her expensive perfume, jasmine and sandalwood. The air in the shop felt heavy, charged with something that wasn't just artistic satisfaction. It was the hum of two people who recognized the same frequency of damage in each other. Silas, she said. Her voice was different, softer. She reached out and touched the tattoo on my neck, the black geometric pattern. Her fingers were cool. Does this protect you? She asked. It reminds me, I said, that I survived. I survived too, she whispered. She leaned in. I saw it happening. The shift in her eyes, the slight tilt of her head. Every instinct in my body screamed yes, to close the gap, to let her storm wash over my rock, but the discipline that governed my lines governed my life. She is a client. She is vulnerable. She is in pain. I kept my hands in my pockets, clenched into fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. I forced myself to be the craftsman, not the man. Adelina, I said, my voice rough. Don't. She froze, inches from me. Silas? You're a client, I said, the words tasting like ash. This is a transaction. If we cross this line, the work is compromised. You're compromised? She blinked, hurt flashing across her face. Is that all I am? A transaction? You're the canvas, I said, stepping back. And I'm the craftsman. That's the only way this works. Before she could answer, before I could regret it, a blinding flash lit up the front window. Click, whir. We spun around. Paparazzi, I swore. Through the gap in the blinds, I saw the lens retreating. They had caught the moment. Not the rejection, not the boundary. They had caught the intimacy. Her hand on my neck, my body leaning toward hers. The look in our eyes. Adelina went pale. No. They can't be here. I took a different car. I wore the hat. They found you, I said. I went to the door and locked the deadbolt, though it was already locked. If that photo gets out, she stammered. Me. Here. With you. It looks like an affair, I said grimly. It looks like the unstable CEO is finding comfort in a tattoo parlor. Sterling, she whispered, he'll use this. He'll say, I'm violating the morality clause, conduct unbecoming of a chief executive. He'll say, I'm prioritizing this over the company. She looked at me. I have to go. You can't go out there, I said. They're waiting. I have to. If I hide, it looks worse. If I hide, it looks like guilt. She grabbed her coat. She buttoned it up to her chin. She put her sunglasses on, even though it was night. Adelina, I said. She stopped at the door. She didn't look back. Don't read the comments, I said. She opened the door and walked into the flashbulbs. The photo was everywhere by morning. Bloomberg, the Seattle Times, TechCrunch. The headline was exactly what she feared. Iran Queen melts? Sanchez CEO spotted at sketchy ink shop days before crucial vote. They zoomed in on my shop sign. They dug up my past, my motorcycle accident, my lack of a college degree. They didn't see an artist. They saw a bad boy distraction. They saw a woman losing her grip. The board called an emergency session. They didn't fire her, not yet. They put her on administrative review pending an investigation into leadership stability. It was a slow-motion execution. Adelina ghosted me. I texted her, "How's the healing?" No reply. I texted again. "Don't scratch it. Use the lotion." Nothing. I sat in my shop, staring at the phone. I wanted to call her. I wanted to tell her I was sorry. But I was the problem. My existence in her life was the weapon they were using against her. 3 days passed. The gala was on Saturday. It was Thursday. The tattoo needed one final touch-up white highlights to make the petals pop. Without it, the piece looked flat, unfinished. Then, a lawyer showed up at my shop. A suit. "Mr. Reyes," he said, handing me a letter. "Miss Sanchez is requesting that you sign this additional non-disclosure agreement." "I already signed an NDA," I said, leaning on the counter. "This one stipulates that you will not speak to the press about any personal relationship. And in exchange, Miss Sanchez offers a settlement of $50,000 for your inconvenience, and to ensure you delete any images." "Settlement?" I laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. "She thinks I'm selling her out? She thinks she needs to survive, Mr. Reyes. Sterling is looking for any reason to bury her. If you talk, she's finished." "I haven't said a word," I said, "and I don't want her money." "Then sign the paper. Take the check. Disappear." I looked at the check. It was more money than I made in 6 months. It was freedom. I tore it in half. "Tell her the tattoo isn't finished," I said. "If she doesn't come in for the whites, the contrast will fade in 6 months. It will look like a bruise. Tell her I don't leave work unfinished." "She won't be coming back," the lawyer said, picking up the pieces of the check. "She's wearing the high-neck dress, Mr. Reyes. She's going to apologize to the board. She's going to play the game. Get out." I kicked him out. I locked the door. I sat in my chair and stared at the empty station. She was going to cover it up. She was going to let them win. She was going to hide the armor I gave her because the world told her it was a weakness. I couldn't let her do that. Not because of me, but because of her. Saturday, the gala. It was being held at the Museum of Pop Culture, Mopop, a massive, glittering event in a building that looked like a melted guitar. I put on a suit. I hated suits. It felt like a straitjacket. It covered my neck tattoo, my arm sleeves. I looked respectable. I looked like a lie. I rode my bike to the museum. I didn't have a ticket, but I knew the security guard at the loading dock. I'd tattooed his daughter's name on his chest last year, pro bono. "Silas?" Dave asked, looking at my suit. "You crashing?" "I need to deliver a message," I said. "5 minutes. "You're crazy, man, but go." I slipped in. The room was a sea of tuxedos and expensive gowns. The noise was deafening chatter, clinking glasses, a string quartet playing pop covers. I saw her. She was standing near the stage. She was wearing the dress, the backless dress. It was emerald green silk. It draped low, exposing her entire back and left side. And there it was. The tattoo? It was healing beautifully. The black and gray peonies curled around her ribs, dark and elegant. From a distance, it looked like lace, like part of the dress. She hadn't covered it. She was showing it. Chairman Vance Sterling was standing next to her, looking like he'd swallowed a lemon. He was gesturing at her side, clearly furious. He was pointing at the ink, his face red. Adelina was smiling. A cold, dangerous smile. She wasn't apologizing. She was owning it. I started to walk toward her, but security blocked me. "Sir, ticket?" "He's with me," a voice said. Adelina walked over. The crowd parted for her. She looked terrifyingly beautiful. The tattoo on her side moved with her breath. Living art. "Silas?" she said. She didn't look ashamed. She looked proud. "You wore the dress," I said. "I decided I didn't want to hide," she said. I told the board. I told them, this is what survival looks like. I told them if they want a CEO who hasn't bled, they can hire a robot. But robots don't have vision, and my PR team flipped it, she grinned. They released a statement about resilience and overcoming trauma 5 minutes before I walked in. The investors loved it. They called it bold, authentic. Sterling is furious, but he can't fire me when the hashtag number Iron Queen is trending positively. The market loves a comeback story. She reached out and took my hand. In front of everyone. In front of the cameras. "You missed the white highlights," she whispered. "I can add them later," I said. "If you're still a client." "I think," she said, squeezing my hand, "that I'm done being just a client." We left the party early. We went back to my shop. She sat on the counter in her emerald gown, eating a slice of pizza I'd ordered. The contrast, the couture dress, the grimy pizza box, the tattoo shop walls was perfect. "You came to get me," she said. "I came to make sure you didn't cover my work," I said. Pride and craft. "Liar," she said. "You came because you missed me." "Maybe." "I was scared," she admitted. When the photo leaked, I thought I had to choose. The company or being human. But then I looked at the scar in the mirror, and it didn't look like a scar anymore. It looked like art. "You can be both," I said. "That's what the ink means. Flowers on a scar, beauty on trauma." "I want to finish it," she said. "The whites. Now. The tattoo is done. The transaction is over." She lay on the table again. I set up the machine. This time, I didn't wear a suit. I was in my t-shirt, my own tattoos visible. I added the white highlights. Small dots of light in the center of the flowers. It stung. I knew. But she didn't flinch. She watched me work. "It's intimate," she whispered, echoing her first words to me. "Only you saw the process." "The world sees the result," I said. "But the process." When I finished, I wiped the skin clean. I looked at her. The barrier was gone. The needle was down. The contract was fulfilled. "Silas," she said. I didn't hold back this time. I leaned down and kissed her. It tasted like rain and relief. 6 months later, Adelina Sanchez was still CEO. The Tattoo-Gate scandal had turned into a branding pivot. Sanchez Dynamics was now marketed as the resilient tech company. The stock was higher than it had been in 5 years. But she never gave an interview about the artist. It was raining again in Seattle. Tuesday night. 8 p.m. The bell chimed. Adelina walked in. She wasn't wearing a suit. She was wearing jeans and a leather jacket. "You're late," I said, looking up from my sketchbook. "Board meeting ran long," she said, locking the door behind her and flipping the sign to closed. She walked over to me. She didn't sit in the client chair. She walked around the counter and stood between my knees. "I have a new idea," she said. "Oh?" I put my hands on her waist. "More armor?" "No," she said, leaning down to kiss me. "No more armor." I was thinking something softer this time. Maybe on my wrist, where I can see it. "What design?" "An anchor?" she whispered against my lips. Because I stopped drifting, I kissed her. The B-flat buzz of the refrigerator kicked in, joining the sound of the rain against the glass. It wasn't silence. It was a symphony. The end.